The first of two songs from Run the Jewels' latest album RTJ4, arguably one of the greatest protest albums of our generation. This next song just features dual legends in Pharrell Williams and Zach De La Rocha, the lead vocalist for the renowned countercultural rap rock band Rage Against the Machine. With its hook, "Look at all those slave masters posing on your dollar," it snidely refers to the faces on our currency while also referencing the modern wage slavery that enshackles the working class of today. To avoid presenting you with an incoherent, rambling, and underdeveloped mess on what this lowly econ major thinks about capitalism, I instead wanted to focus on something more bite-sized: stock buybacks. Stock buybacks are one of several tactics utilized by corporations to centralize wealth in the hands of the owners rather than the workers. The practice began during the Great Depression as a means to combat plummeting stock prices during the market crash of 1929. By buying back their own stock from stockholders, executives could artificially increase the price of their stock. When supply of something goes down, price goes up. By reducing the supply of their company's stock, the price goes up. FDR aggressively regulated stock buybacks in his 1934 Securities and Exchanges Act, which led to companies funneling their profit into higher productivity and higher wages for their employees instead. Come 1982, the economic theory of neoliberalism assumed control, and Reagan's administration opened up stock buybacks as part of its overall war against government regulation. With the return of stock buybacks, investors were once again in control. The new economic philosophy of the time, called the Friedman Doctrine, insisted that a company's number one responsibility over its own employees and even its own customers was to its shareholders. Ostensibly, this puts the power of a company in the hands of many investors rather than one executive. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was that the greed of the investors led to the changing of how CEOs get paid. Rather than just a flat salary, CEOs now get bonuses based on how high the stock price is, and the easiest way to bump that thing up is through stock buybacks. The most obvious result you see from this is a rapidly increasing wealth gap between the regular employees and the executives of a company, with a very consistent trend in recent years where companies announce stock buybacks, then their executives sell off massive amounts of their stock, then they execute the buyback and award themselves more stock for a total profit. If you want some numbers, here's an example. In 2018, Home Depot's CEO announced they would be spending $4 billion on a stock buyback. The next day, he sold 113,000 shares and made $18 million, gained about 40,000 shares the following day, then sold 25,000 of those shares for another $4 million. In comparison, the average Home Depot employee makes $23,000 a year. Stock buybacks have recently fallen under more scrutiny given recent news. Trump's 2017 tax cut to big businesses lowered the corporate tax rate from 37% to 21%, and you can actually see interviews with Republicans asserting that these tax cuts would result in more of the company's profits being reinvested into higher wages for their workers and better technology for their customers. But studies into the effects of the tax cut showed very little growth in wage rates and record-breaking amounts of stock buybacks. Furthermore, if you've ever wondered why so many of the most profitable brands like Papa John's, Wendy's, or airlines were begging the government for financial aid during the coronavirus pandemic, it's because these companies purposefully neglected to maintain healthy funds in favor of stock buybacks to enrich their executives and investors. Independent research firms found that the companies who were in line for billions of dollars in financial aid were all guilty of pushing stock buybacks to the point of financial irresponsibility for the sake of quick short-term profit for their execs and investors. It's important to reflect on this when you listen to the government now struggle and bicker and fight to pass an aid package for regular Americans when they've already handed out trillions of dollars to mega corporations who put themselves in vulnerable positions. Like all of our previous topics, I feel like there's so much more to go into here, but to be perfectly honest, there's just so much I myself need to learn. I hope this has just gotten you to start considering how things in this country aren't the perfect meritocracy we're sometimes led to believe as kids.